Welcome to our Animal Justice Academy Lunchtime Live, Raising Healthy Vegan Kids with Naza, Hasebenebi, Amy Symington, and Dr. Rikin Patel. I'm Kimberly Carroll. I'm the director of Animal Justice Academy, and just a big welcome to those of you caring folks here in our community that are joining us here live, and also welcome to those of you who are joining the replay. We're really glad to have you here too. So I would love to spotlight our peeps today. We have three incredible guests joining us, and I want to just give you some background. You've probably seen their full bios on the event webpage, but I'm just going to give you a little taste. So first of all, Dr. Rikin Patel is a pediatrician and a board-certified lifestyle medicine physician. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Pediatrics at the University of Toronto. Rikin currently works for the Scarborough Health Network and also founded Reset Pediatrics in 2023. He has completed the plant-based certificate program through the T. Colin Campbell Center for Nutrition Studies at Cornell University. I think some of you know that program and have gone through it yourself. Dr. Patel has worked with numerous families and is compassionate about giving children and their families the best fuel for their well-being to maximize their potential. Rikin, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. It's good to see everybody. And yeah, nice to see some familiar faces. Look forward to the discussion.
And Rikin, Dr. Patel, has actually taken a break from patients to do this today. So we're very grateful for you, Rikin.
You
Thank
can
you.
see I'm in the office setting in the background.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Also, we're so glad that she is taking a break from all of the chaos and busyness and beauty that is her life. Amy Symington is a nutrition professor, researcher, and a nutrition-focused chef in Toronto. Amy has a Master's of Science in Applied Human Nutrition and is currently a PhD candidate in nutritional sciences at the University of Toronto. And some of you have taken part in her DHA study. She runs the culinary nutrition programming at Gilda's Toronto, not-for-profit cancer organization, and is the culinary nutrition specialist for Humane World for Animals, Canada's Forward Food Team. She also consults and teaches with us over at the Toronto Vegetarian Food Bank. Woohoo! And she has an award-winning cookbook called The Long Table Cookbook, Plant-Based Recipes for Optimal Health. Last, but certainly not least, she's mom to two healthy and happy and very active vegan boys. Welcome, Amy.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and it's so nice to see you. And I'm just really looking forward to the discussion as well.
Amazing, darling. So good to have you here. And we have Naza Hasebenebi. She is the proud Eritrea-born owner and founder of Chickpeas Veg. Chickpeas. You know what? I have had too many tech problems today, and I am just going to have to take a breath right now, my own advice, Coach Kimberly, and slow it down. So Naza is the founder of Chickpeas Veg, a plant-based company that offers catering, meal plans, pop-up brunches, and online cooking classes in Toronto and the surrounding areas. Naza is passionate about teaching others how to prepare delicious vegan meals and snacks while exposing them to various herbs, spices, and recipes from around the globe. Naza has been living and loving a plant-based lifestyle for over 20 years and has raised two vegan sons. Am I right on that? Two of them, right, Naza? Oh, darling, you're muted.
Okay, there I go. Yes, yes, now they're in their 20s. They're almost 23, and the youngest just turned 21 a couple of months ago. So this is all they know.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, so I really want to sort of surf off of that. So Naza, we're going to start with you. Share a little bit about your experience dealing with kids on a plant-based diet, both, personally and professionally. So tell us a little bit about this.
This is actually one of my favorite subjects to discuss because people often think in the early days when my sons were born and I was already plant-based, my sons, so I raised them plant-based. There was a lot of commotion around it. Like, I think you're neglecting them. They're not getting enough nutrients. They're not, look, they're going to be thin. All of this is skepticism. But I knew in my heart what I was doing is what I was doing. And how I'm wired as well as an individual is that my spirit tells me, like within, it tells me I'm doing the right thing. And I just move that way. And so over the years, it's been one of the greatest joys because children are so open. Children are so open. Children actually love vegetables. Funny enough, I find from my experience, it's when adults have a certain experience or a certain reaction to certain type of foods that I find children are then, oh, if my parent didn't want it, there must be something wrong, so I shouldn't. But on their own, I find that children are really, really open to trying new things, and broccoli being like the most favorite vegetable. Who knew? Growing up, you always see people hiding broccoli, giving it to the dog under the table. And I grew up not liking broccoli. I think that played a part in it, but also the way it was cooked. So what I've noticed is for the experience, the personal side of it, my sons are really strong. They are slim, but they are also pretty toned. They have so much energy. And so when people say, oh, but they're so slim, I said, ask them to give you a hug. That's when they give. They're really tight. They're like, okay, oh, okay, okay, okay. So from that perspective, we think that you're healthy if you're bigger, right? And sometimes we think if you're thin, you're healthy. But there's this dichotomy of not understanding what health really looks like and feels like. We don't focus much on what it feels like, because we know that when we eat certain foods, we feel a certain way, whether that's a positive feeling or a negative feeling, not just on the, oh, I ate, so I feel energized, but also, do I feel energized or do I feel heavy? So with that aspect of it, sending food for my children, everything I prepared at home, at least until they finished elementary. When they got to high school, I tried. They were not trying to have mommy packed lunches and high school. But a big part of that for me was just making sure they're eating things that we know are strictly veg, that we know are safe. There's no contamination, and it's not going to be junk. Lots of sugary things. Everything they took was thermoses and baked goods that their mama did for them at home. And if there was anything else, I have to thank my good friend Alana from Sweets from the Earth. It's Auntie Alana's baked treats that they also grew up on if we were going to get something outside. Now, flip side, my son's in high school, their school snack program, they got Sweets from the Earth muffins. They came home going crazy, Mommy, look what we got at school. So the flip side of that is what they were doing at home. Now at school was offering these vegan treats, but it's for all the children, not just for the plant-based or vegan children. It's for all the children. So the other children have no clue. But when they saw my children eating them, they're like, I don't think you can eat that. I think it has the stuff you can't eat. They're like, no, this is my Auntie Alana. So it's all vegan. So they felt boisterous and confident to say, the school has something that we can eat, and it's for everyone, and it's not just fresh veggies and fruit. So, and then on the professional side of it, of also for many years doing workshops, nutrition workshops within the school boards, the various school boards, it's that, again, children are open. But some children do not have the accessibility because they're not the ones who shop, it's their parents. So in some of our workshops, I would find that I'm just introducing a child to baby spinach for the first time. And so they might be some, well, no, we don't eat that. We don't eat that. And I said, well, we're going to do a smoothie. It's going to, consist of fruit and vegetables. They're like, fruit and vegetables in a smoothie, and we're going to add some fresh herbs like mint. And basil and parsley. They're like, my mom cooks with that. So yes, but you can also eat it, enjoy it in a smoothie, and here are the benefits.
Okay, Naza, I don't want to steal all your secrets yet because we have it coming. We have more coming.
Okay. So on that tip, I find that children are more open. Children are more compassionate because they also have the connection to animals. They love animals. They don't want that animal to be eaten. They don't want it on a plate, and that's the truth. I think families have to figure out and understand that their children know what they want because they understand it at a human level. This is a living being. I'm a living being. Why would you want me to eat that? And so parents are now having to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to have these conversations? What's my response to my children? Because now there's so much more information. There's so much more encouragement and much easier, I find, to go plant-based versus almost 30 years ago when I started out. I'm just over 26 years now. Big Care was the only place you could get soy milk. So I'm just happy that there's so much more available, and there's more emphasis for children and families, and that this can be done. We've done it. And Amy can speak to that as well.
Thank you, Naza. Well, so Naza, talked about just the feeling and sort of the conscience and heart of it. Rikin, you come at it from a much more sort of scientific, medicinal way. Tell us a little bit about what your experience has been dealing with kids on a plant-based diet.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, Naza, for starting us off with the life experience of having raised two kids that, uh, you know, at least neither, I don't have that experience yet, but looking forward to also learning more from you as I go through it. But yeah, in terms of the, from the health and medical perspective, we have lots of research. I think what's really important for families to know is that right off the bat, we can quote the American Pediatric Society, the Canadian Pediatric Society, um, Dietitians of Canada, and the Association for American Dietitians, and they all have come out to say unifyingly that raising a child on a fully plant-based diet is not only healthy and nutritionally adequate, but also has a role in preventing certain chronic diseases. So I think having that buy-in from larger organizations is a really important piece because it's not something that I feel like or it's something by popular. There's big organizations that have sieved through tons and tons of research to show this, and I think that's really important just to share up front because it gives us factual information because I think a lot of times when the debate happens, it can get emotional. And a lot of times I will, to educate the families that I'm with usually the families that I have, they're already, they're convinced and they're already doing it. But, to try to not make the argument emotional, try to stay as fact-based as possible and equipping and preparing our children with uh, the confidence and preparing them to have these discussions is also really important. But again, just to know that we have good enough research to show that growth parameters are very equal between plant-based eaters and meat eaters. There's the Vecchi study coming out of Germany that I'm happy to share with everyone after. We know that kids who are predominantly on a plant, I always call it a plant strong diet, less risk for obesity, having much for fiber in their diet, diets with less saturated fat intake. And we know saturated fat isn't connected to so many chronic diseases now, type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, like heart disease. Even now, we know that there's research where high amounts of animal protein will increase risk of certain types of cancer. And so again, these are all really important when we're looking at framing this. I particularly encourage all families to share the Canada Food Guideline, which has been a revolution, that Canada was bold and courageous to take in 2019. And the reason why is because they had a physician as their minister at that time who really said, okay, we're going to kick out all the industries. We're going to try to look at the best available research. And that's why I share with families the four biggest changes. And I share this with families as young as 12 to 18 months when they're coming in for just the regular visits. You can see actually the guideline is in the background there, but I have it on the wall so families can look at. But the four big changes right off the bat is that, this is a plate a plate format now, so we don't have to be so specific about servings, and that this plate is half fruits and vegetables, right? And the reason why is because the real emphasis on fiber. First big change. The second is I encourage families, everything that was white in your diet, now we switched over to brown, and that's whole grains. And again, the emphasis on fiber. And then the two other changes that I always, bring connecting it to that visual is that water is now the beverage of choice, and milk has been removed because of its connection to many health conditions, and that now meat is no longer a food group, and the emphasis more is on a variety of protein sources, specifically plant proteins. So I think again, using these four just high level facts that they can visually see on this, I think is really helpful. And we, again, are connecting it to both the good research that's been done there and the opportunity we have. Again, that's just from the health perspective. There are many other perspectives, but I will say in my experience, sometimes the environment or helping animals, sometimes that is not convincing enough. But when we take it to people's personal health, parents will say, oh, like I want my kid to be the healthiest. I want to maximize their potential. I want to, give them the best chance. And so for me being a physician, I try to, give the best health arguments as possible to help their children thrive and again maximize their growth and also their just potential in general.
Thank you for laying that out right off the bat, because I think that's really important. That's the biggest pushback we have. So is this can't be healthy, or this isn't healthy. You're not being a good parent. You're not being a good, aunt, uncle, whatever. Amy, can you share a little bit about what your experience has been in dealing with kids on a plant-based diet, and also just a little bit more about some of the aspects of health that Rikin talked about that you think are really important to put front and center when you're talking to people about kids being vegan?
I mean, I think they both covered the majority of the things that that need highlighting, but just me, like professionally, when I'm focusing on plant-based diets, it's really just about mobilizing Canada's food guide. And that's and simplifying things for people so it's accessible, it's approachable, it's affordable. And so, yeah, just really trying to mobilize Canada's food guide. And thankfully we have this wonderful plate model now. And as Rikin said, like the previously, having to focus on those specific food groups was not only was it not evidence-based, it was just so complicated. So it's really, really wonderful to have this evidence-based food guide that I can mobilize both professionally and personally, and that's what I do. As you went over my bio, that's all I do in my professional life is just mobilize Canada's food guide from training chefs across Canada in large institutions like hospitals, universities, long-term care facilities, schools like elementary schools, public schools. It's really just about mobilizing Canada's food guide. And that's the best way to get people to buy in too, because it just makes perfect sense. Like, of course, we should be eating lots of fruits and vegetables. Of course, we should be eating whole grains. Of course, we need protein-rich foods. And again, it's backed by science that we should be eating the majority, if not all of our protein foods should be plant-based. Yeah, and then personally, I think Naza hit on some really wonderful notes that I just that resonate with me. It is so much easier now being vegan than it was. I've been vegan for over 14 years, veg for 20. It was so difficult in the beginning, and I can't imagine, or I can only imagine the pushback and oh, this is child abuse. What are you doing to your kids? Of course they need meat. Of course they need dairy. And now we have so much science that just indicates that it's really one of the best diets for chronic disease prevention and management. And we absolutely need to set our kids up for success early on from the beginning. And Rikin probably talked to this as well, but even in the womb, if you're eating a whole foods plant-based diet, the kids are getting a benefit from that, but it also sets them up for success when they're toddlers and adolescents, because they're more apt to eat fruits and vegetables, particularly those bitter vegetables, which they usually, if they're not exposed to enough, they usually reject. And so it's so much easier now. I honestly, I don't have any issues I never had any issues with daycares pushing back. I've never had any issues with the schools pushing back. I did have a pediatrician that did, and I just got a different one. You just got someone that was more educated. I'm like, listen, this is my bag. I have a master's in applied human nutrition with a focus on functional food, currently doing a PhD in nutritional science. I know what the
don't mess with me, man.
Yeah, I know what the evidence is and not every doctor is interested in nutrition or has the time or capacity to learn about nutrition. So it's really wonderful having those doctors that really care about the lifestyle medicine, like Rikin and other champions out there. But I will say it is much easier because of people like Naza, who blazed the trails for us in the beginning. And to be honest, yeah, again, it's just I know the science, so it's really, yeah, as you say, people can't really mess with the science when you know it. So personally and professionally, it's been great. Professionally, I would say I've gotten more pushback than personally. And that's just, I work in the culinary industry, so it's
Right.
really hard getting people to give up their meat and dairy. But once you do it with delicious food, it's so easy. It's like I say, it's the gateway to a plant-based diet is just making food super tasty.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So sorry. Naza, were you going to say something? Oh, sorry. I thought I heard somebody.
Oh no, I was just completely agreeing about
Mhm.
making delicious food. That's the way. And that's for anyone, for anything. Food is the way to people's hearts and minds. Once they taste well-flavored food, that has been my go-to. I don't even tell them vegan. I just say, oh, try this. And then
Yeah.
they eat it, and then I tell them after I know they love it. And so then they're more open. But yeah.
And so Naza, what about food prep for parents of vegan kids? You know, what are some foolproof foods that you sort of recommend, or some pantry or snack standbys? You know, or what are some prep techniques? You know, I'm imagining, you know, most parents are busy, and I think, you know, obviously vegan parents tend to also be involved in advocacy. They can be very busy as well, even more busy. So what are some tips you'd like to give around that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us just wants to eat. Well, okay, we want to eat healthier. We want to be able to spend more time with our family. A way that it worked for us was getting my sons involved. So I would have them wash, I would have them peel, just so they're part of the process. Or if I'm cooking, I have them sitting and doing their homework right beside me. So they're watching what I'm doing, they're smelling. And so at this point now, at their age, they both know how to cook. And so also growing up, I did it where each one had one day of the week to cook. They can cook whatever they want to cook, but they have one day of the week to cook. And so through that, they were able to see like, oh, okay, I enjoy this food, or I enjoy that food. Oh, I kind of like this. They became big foodies. And so what I would do as far as school lunches, because those were the trickiest for a lot of parents, and doing the workshops inside the school with parents as well, they're always asking, what can I send for lunch? I don't know. And so, and I've heard that also from educators who say, I can see what my children are eating, my students, based on the behavior. I can tell. They probably had Coke and cookies for breakfast. And that's a real thing. Some children just don't have access to the nutritious food, or adults in their home who may know better. And also finances, right? There's security in this city in a huge way in many communities. So having said all of that, I look at, okay, what does your child like? So tortillas. Tortillas are great. You can make a delicious wrap. You can ask your child, what do they want to put in that wrap? What veggies and what proteins and what have you. So when you offer a variety for children, they can choose. Things like nice, delicious salads. And I don't mean greens. I'm talking about chickpea salad, lentil salad that has like delicious, like a little bit of curries, a bit of cranberries, maybe some roasted sweet potatoes. When you're making that, that can also be for you, the adult. The same food you can eat. My sons and I, we ate the same food. I would cook extra food at dinner time, knowing they're going to take for school and for me. So when I cook dinner, I'm taking care of two meals, dinner and lunch for the next day. Things that you could put in thermoses. So just think, you don't have to think to make something completely separate for children to take to school. Because I think we all supposed to have bologna sandwiches for school. Not all of us.
Yeah, like it's just like, oh, I never even thought you could just take some dinner for your lunch. What?
Let me tell you, I remember when my family came to Canada, to this day, I remember the first meal we had. It was a bologna sandwich with mustard. We had never had these two things together. But going to school, I would see everybody with this meal. And I'm like, is that how everybody eats?
It was definitely my childhood meal, bologna and mustard.
Right.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah, somebody accidentally, I got something somewhere at a shop and I didn't know that it had mustard, and I bit into it and I'm like, there's mustard in here. And it took me to 40 years ago, that day that we came from Africa into this country, but just the idea of certain things can bring you trigger memories. But things like pita wraps, you can stuff a pita. The children can choose what they want to put in their pita. That's fantastic. The salads, like I mentioned, but also things that you can bake at home. Have some spelt flour, have some dry fruit, some chocolate chip, You can bake some cookies. You can bake some muffins. Also things like breakfast cookies. Very simple. You got great oats. You know, we use oats, applesauce, bananas, a little bit of chocolate chip if you want, and sweetened coconut. There are your breakfast cookies. That now can be breakfast and a school snack. Things like soups. Put your soup in a thermos, especially in the winter months, the colder months. We want hearty, warming food. I will tell you that my sons used to go to school all from daycare. They didn't eat from the schools, right from daycare. Everything was from home. Just because people didn't know. This was so long ago, they just didn't know. And I didn't want to take a chance on my sons getting sick if they were being fed something that wasn't, you know, cross-contamination or what have you. People just didn't know. To this day, there are a lot of people who think when you say vegan, they're like, yeah, we'll just take the meat out. You can still eat the stew. They don't understand, although there's much more information. Things like if they like injera. Injera is great. You crush it up with your stew. You know, if you eat at a restaurant or make it at home with the stews, and then the next day you warm it up together. We call it fit, and you put it in a thermos. The same thing. You don't have to really think too much. Just if you're making a hearty dinner, it's a delicious, nutritious dinner, make extra of it for everyone else to have the next day. I think things like that don't take up too much time. I think they're very helpful, but also doing things like batches. You know, also preparing some things in batches. You could put some in the freezer, some in the fridge. If the children need it, they could pull it out. Because the other thing is especially when the children are younger, they're very active. They have gymnastics, they have soccer, they have piano, they have karate. Parents never stop. So you end up buying things here, there. It may be vegan, but it's still processed, and it may be over processed, and it's going to cost you so much more. So it's better just to do a little bit of thinking ahead of time, and prepare foods that way. I think that kind of, for us, that worked really well.
Yeah, you know, just while we're talking, I just want to jump off of something because, Rikin, one of the things that is an easy sort of go-to for parents is are some meat alternatives, right? The burgers, the hot dogs, the
salami and what have you.
all of that. And we actually just had somebody on, an expert on a few weeks ago, talking about the fact that has been so overblown, that the whole ultra processed label has been such a misnomer, and it's been something that's been really put forward by the meat industry. Can you talk a little bit about that, and maybe Amy, if there's anything you want to throw in there too about, you know, like sort of the health or unhealth of these products?
Yeah, I think.
And Naza, I'm going to get Rikin to weigh in on this one.
Let me mute myself. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Kimberly. Yeah, this is a really big topic of discussion because you can do plant-based or vegan poorly if it's done with a lot of processed foods, such as these meat alternatives. So if you look at the food labels, which is something we really try to educate families on, is how to read food labels, because these, you know, with the attempt to try to make the most similar substitute, there's still a lot of, they can be high in saturated fat. They're high in calories. There are a lot of things that we would want to try to be careful of. So again, I feel like if you're starting your journey, there's a role for it at the beginning to find something similar. But again, really the emphasis has to be on whole foods that are nutrient dense. Because if we do stay on a lot of these packaged substitutes, we will see that, now we know that kids, some of their diets upwards of 50, even up, I've heard up to 70% of calories now are coming from ultra processed food, which is a high amount and really contributing to a lot of the chronic diseases we're seeing showing up in kids. But again, I'm not going to say there's a place for it, in the journey of transition. I will say they have served the purpose, but it's not where we're looking to stay. But I'm happy to also hear from Amy as well.
Yeah, because I just want to also just put a little, and Amy, you can expand on this, but we had Dr. Matthew Nagra on a few weeks ago, and talking about just that, yes, obviously whole foods are the best, But the fact is that scientific studies have shown that these plant-based alternatives, meat analogs, are actually still better than the meat. So yeah, Amy, you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it though. It's really it's not something we eat every day, all day. But if we're using it as a substitute for the meat alternative in terms of health outcomes, it is actually better. That's not to say even within those ultra processed foods, there are good, ones that we consume daily. So for example, if we're using the NOVA classifications system, soy milk is an ultra processed food. It's classified as an ultra processed food. But is it an important part of a plant-based diet? Of course it is. It's a good source of protein, has the same amount of protein per cup as cow's milk, almost like close to the same amount of calories. Fat, a little lower in fat, so you want to supplement the diet with other things. But it is an important component, and it is what's recommended, right? But it is classified as an ultra processed food. Yogurts are also classified as an ultra processed food, which is something that people eat regularly.
Yeah, in like regular dairy yogurts are classified as ultra processed. Yeah, so just to be able to, because yeah, we just really need to sort of hit home that we're still doing better than the animal based foods.
Yeah, so there is a time and place, and that, as I said, that's not to say that we should be eating these all day, every day. And even if we're talking about specifically meat analogs, there are ones that are higher in saturated fat and sodium for sure, and then there are ones that are actually are far lower or have no saturated fat, like the Eve's products. Gardine's a little better. When we're talking about things like Beyond and Impossible, those tend to be a little bit higher. Well, they are higher in saturated fat. And so those would be sometimes foods. Those wouldn't be something that you would eat, again, every day, all day. Yeah, so I think that's really important to note. I also think it's important to note that the NOVA classification system and things, when we say ultra processed foods, it's not a good or bad. It's not innately evil or unhealthy product. It's just talking about the processing of it, and a lot of foods are processed. Even the frozen fruit in your freezer section, that's processed. It's been processed to a degree. But overall, it is best, obviously, to try and get as much whole plant-based foods as you possibly can. And cooking from scratch is obviously ideal, but it's not always practical with busy lifestyles and with kids who have tons of activities and parents or caretakers who have full-time jobs.
Sure, and also kids who are seeing their counterparts eating yummy burgers, or it's hot dog day, or it's pizza day, and so I want to get, before we tread into that, I just a little intel that I got from the AVA Summit, the Animal and Vegan Advocacy International Summit that I was at last week. Beyond Meat, the founder, Ethan, what's his name? Anyway, he's amazing, but he spoke, and they've reformulated Beyond Meat. So they've taken a lot of the saturated fats out. They've taken all the coconut oil out. They're sourcing all sorts of things. So they're really responding, and they've reformulated it. So that's rolling out soon. So keep an eye out, folks. And there's also going to be a big sort of information push to sort of set the record straight on that. So. Right. Okay, I want to ask, this is, a topic that has come up here in the chat, and that is that generally kids are sort of dealing still, that we still are a smaller part of the population, although growing a lot. What is the best way to talk to your kids about being vegan? Especially when they're not eating the same things as their friends at, school, at birthday parties, at pizza day. What's Amy, actually, we'll start with you this time. What is some of the ways that you can sort of talk to them about that?
Yeah, we read a ton of books, and we just talk about animals are our friends. And my kid, as Naza said, kids get it. They don't want to eat their friends. They don't want to eat animals. They let my kids' favorite animal is pigs. Like they just don't want to eat their friends. So that part is easy. And then reading like tons of books about animals and animal-centric movies and things like that, and just like, see, these living beings, they want to live, they want to be happy, they want to, not encounter any sort of pain. That part is easy, I find, anyways. And as I mentioned, at school, again, it's just there's so many options now, like pizza day. there is a vegan option for pizza at our school. And birthday parties and with pizza and cake. Again, the majority of the parents know me, know my family, and they usually will make sure that there's a vegan option. Or if not, if I don't know the family as much, I'll just send out a quick message. Hey, we're hippie vegans.
You
What can
make it light,
Yes,
not
totally.
righteous. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything I can bring or do or bake but I find most people are really accommodating. One of my oldest best friend, his parents made ice cream cake that looked exactly like the dairy cake for them. Like they're usually pretty accommodating, and they want people to feel included, especially kids. But if that's not the case, then you can just bring it yourself. No big deal. Try and get something similar to what the other kids are eating. But my kids definitely don't feel restricted by any means. There's just vegan everything now. It's pretty easy.
Mm. And I think there are probably, I have heard from parents that there's still, some pushback and, not necessarily all. Yeah. And one thing I just want to say is Julie O'Neill in the chat, who I think we all know, she's a good bud, awesome Ontario activist. And her hubby Patrick and son Max in Ontario, they run a camp for vegan kids every summer. It's called Kinder World Summer Camp. It's a week-long wilderness camp for kids 9 to 14, delish plant-based meals, intimate, camp in this sort of peaceful and compassionate environment. And sometimes it's really important for, kids. I know as adult vegans, we like to just have some spaces sometimes when we can be with people that are sort of living a similar lifestyle. And I think that's the same for kids. So if anyone wants to check that out, that would be great. Rikin, I just want to ask, there are some important things, even though we have determined that plant-based diet can be optimal for children. But there are a few things that parents should know, some things that they should know to make sure their kids are covered on a plant-based diet at different ages. Let's talk a little bit about that, what they should cover.
Yeah, sure. So I think most people, if we go back to even as early as pregnancy, some may most probably know that moms should be supplementing with B12, vitamin D, and omega-3s. And these are all three really important things to keep in mind for moms. And then as we transition into kids, if we take just like the 0 to 18 months initially, if you're exclusively plant-based, then vitamin B12 is a must. I generally say vitamin D is good even beyond the first year, especially depending on the part of the world you live in. But just knowing that, between 0 and 6 months, it's 400 international units. After 6 months, after a year, it would move up to 600 international units, and that you can use that all the way up to the age of 5. And then again, depending on the food sources that you're having, it's also really important to consider omega-3s. So that's going to come, like chia seeds, flax seeds, walnuts, soy products. And then the other micronutrient that is important to remember and it's often sometimes forgotten, is iodine. And so again, iodine we can still eat it through, like sprinkling like, there's seaweed. So that's, one way you can get iodine. But again, just remembering both obviously we haven't discussed the macronutrients, and that changes based on age. And I think when we're talking about just how much of everything, I think it's really, really important for us just to acknowledge the age of the child, because it does change as kids are growing. Protein requirements change, fat intake changes, where you want more fat in the first 3 years of life because of the brain development. So up to 35% of our calories are coming from fat sources when you're really young.
I wish I was a baby.
And then
I want 35% fat sources, Rikin.
Yeah. And then, naturally, it's decreasing as we age, and then obviously it's basically only 10% of our calories as adults. So again, just knowing, depending on the macronutrient, always really trying to see what age our children is at. That's a really important piece to to consider because it's not a one size fits all when we're especially in that first 5 years. So I just wanted to kind of start with that as some things to consider for our younger kids.
Mm. Amy, you have something to add to that?
I was just gonna say I have a great resource that I'll share with you afterwards. It's you probably most of you have probably heard of her, but Brenda Davis, she's a registered dietitian, really, really knowledgeable about plant-based nutrition in general and chronic disease prevention and management. She has like a whole PDF on raising healthy vegan kids. Really information dense, just kind of summarizing everything Rikin
Yeah.
just talked about there, and then goes into obviously adolescence and just like honestly hits every single major point. So I'll share that afterwards and we can share it
Yeah,
with
and since we're doing it, just a shout out. I brought
yeah.
books. I like
Yeah.
to always show families books and
Nice.
resources that they can take away. So this, since
Love it.
Amy brought it up, it's really like I consider it the complete guide from,
Yes.
pregnancy all the way to your child is like into adulthood. It's a great book. I'm still continuing to learn from this book. Since we're talking about books, I know there's been some
And
questions
sorry, who's the
around
author of that one?
Brenda Davis. It's
That's
Shah
Brenda's
and
book.
Brenda
Okay,
Davis.
great.
The second book that I recommend for people who are looking more of like looking at research, my colleague Dr. Shireen and Zara Kassam, plant-based, eating plant-based. So it's the whole book is question and answers, but the questions are the answers to everything are based on the most up-to-date research that we have. And I know that will answer some of the questions in the chat that refer to specific studies. This book will have most of the studies, at least that are up there, till like about 2022.
Excellent. Okay. I know we only have Rikin for a few more minutes because you have an appointment at 1.
I
Rikin,
still can stay for a few minutes after.
Okay. So if you don't mind, because we started just a few minutes late. So I just want to get your input because some folks are asking about this in the chat. One thing that non-vegans seem to panic about the most is kids not drinking dairy. It's, oh my God, how are they going to grow? And they're not going to have bones and they're going to be so small. What can you say to ease some anxieties? What are the best plant-based milks for kids? And also maybe we can touch on formula for babies too.
Yeah, so in my experience, I will say for the best substitute I still always advocate for is soy. And we know that soy has the equal amount of protein as Amy was mentioning, but we get all the benefits without necessarily the saturated fat intake or the cholesterol. So soy is still the beverage of choice, even when we're looking at younger kids that may have, let's say, like cow's milk protein intolerance. Soy is still a very, viable choice at a younger age. And generally after moms are breastfeeding and they want to stay plant-based, soy is the beverage of choice. So in terms of kind of the best choice, I will say that, milk is tied to a lot of health conditions, skin issues, constipation, iron deficiency. And so it doesn't come because sometimes parents don't know, but that, because milk is more of casein protein, that does cause gut inflammation. And I think that's really important to keep in mind. So when we do have a lot of gut issues, and this is something important to consider about milk, and that we know globally, I think about 75% of the population do have a lactose intolerance. And again, very much, fits the need for an alternative for milk at some point. And we have so many, I mean, Amy and Naza will definitely know all the brands. I personally sometimes have a hard time keeping up with all the new stuff coming out. So I also get ideas from my patients when they come in, but tons of great alternatives. Again, just the main thing I point parents towards when they're looking at the labels for soy milk alternatives is just watching ones where there's as little added sugar as possible. So that's my only take. But again, if you need to, if taste is really important, then that added sugar is still fine because they're still getting all the benefits that are needed.
Yeah, so basically, we all love oat milk in our coffee and stuff like that, and it's a special treat. But if you're going to go head to head with the protein and the calcium and everything, it's soy milk. And Amy, is there a particular soy milk brand that you recommend, or it's all kind of the same?
I mean, whatever you can afford, but I would just echo that just getting one that doesn't have any added sugars is probably preferable. Uh, but if taste is a thing, then you can definitely get, there's vanilla and there's ones with added sugar that you can consume. In terms of specific brands, I like Natura is my favorite. It's like very neutral, again, unsweetened. If you're adding it, you can use it in like soup, stews, anything that's savory at a 1-to-1 ratio. I find the other milks still are a little bit sweet, even though they're unsweetened. And so you can taste them if you're putting it into like savory sauces and things like that. And it has like a really like nice ingredients list. It's very things that you can understand and not super long. But yeah, it's honestly whatever is affordable and accessible to you, but try and get the unsweetened as much as possible.
Mhm.
Naza,
I had a quick question, sorry, for Dr. Patel, because we experienced this. So for babies, for those who cannot tolerate or digest soy as a baby, because we ran into that, we gave my eldest, I'm so sorry about that. We gave my eldest formula, and it was soy based. And we're like, yeah, it's veg, it's okay. And that was the beginning of eczema. It just went, his skin rash for years. We had really, really difficult times. And so with my second child, zero formula. We had no intentions of doing formula anyways. And this is the part when we talk about when family and communities like, no, I think you need to add. I don't think it's going to be enough. And so you kind of like, you're like, okay, you birthed 6 or 7 children and raised them to adulthood and they have children. Okay, maybe I should, all right, we'll listen a little bit and introduce the formula, but it had such an adverse reaction. So what would you recommend as an alternative milk for babies or young children, as opposed to the soy for those who can't digest it?
Well, I always have to advocate for human or breast milk being the best.
I'm with you
So
on the breast milk, totally. Outside
for,
of that, like if they
for
wanted to add something, yeah.
as long as you can go. Obviously, as you mentioned, the second go-to is soy milk.
Mhm.
And it depends, with families, like I think, one thing that I really try to get to know with families is what are their, values in terms of like what is really important to them, because I think, uh, like I best as possible not try to push on choices, but will kind of explore options based on what's important to the family. So sometimes we're in a position where, I've never had a situation where people adversely, like there was an adverse situation to soy specifically.
Right.
But again, like we do have like partially hydrolyzed formulas with kids who are more sensitive. I'd have to look up and see if there's partially hydrolyzed formulas that are soy based. I'm sure
Okay.
it's out there. I don't know, Amy, if you know about
Yeah, I was
that.
gonna say, I think there's some pea protein based
Pea
ones
protein,
coming out in
yeah.
the market. Yeah, which would maybe be better, especially if people have a soy allergy. But if you don't have a soy allergy, obviously soy is the way to go. But there are definitely other
Types.
options. But yeah, don't go with almond or oat or rice. Those are obvious, as we talked about, they're low in protein. But yeah, soy would be the best, and then the pea protein ones I think would be second best.
And I think also for people to understand, I think formula is not mandatory. As Dr. Patel, breast milk is it, as long as you could do that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are breastfeeding, but they have to get back to work and pumping. But then I also found for us, I know we did with my second son, my youngest, once we saw the formula situation with our eldest, we said, okay, not doing that with the second one. And things like different types of porridges, like sorghum. Quinoa came much later, but types like kamut, sorghum, teff, like porridges, tapioca. We used to do like little tapioca bowl porridges, plantain porridges. And obviously these will take time in the beginning, but it's just to make sure that the child is getting the nutrients that they need. without necessarily the traditional formula sense. Just to know that there's another way.
I think we can also throw in too that you don't necessarily have to stop breastfeeding at 6 months, right? You want to continue breastfeeding up until a year, sometimes up to 2, like the World Health Organization recommends even up to 2 years of breastfeeding. Obviously, the first 6 months is just exclusive.
And so what happens if somebody isn't able to breastfeed? They can't just on soy milk. There's got to be formula, right?
Yes.
And so there's formula. And to what age does there need to be formula?
So generally, I mean, I start talking to families that really generally after the age of 1, you don't need formula in the diet anymore. That's if Amy has a different suggestion, but I usually use 1-year-old as kind of the cutoff where, all the other formulas that the formula companies make, you can get that all in food, right? And so that's really the emphasis. And you wouldn't believe how many times the challenges arise. They're still having too much, either milk or formula past 1, and they're not eating enough food. Or I have either not eating enough or picky. So then I just tell them to either cut or eliminate, as much milk intake or formula as possible, and just make food as as the first choice. But yeah, 1-year-old.
Okay, there is a follow-up question on this that I think is really important, again, because as people that are, have kids that are eating plant-based, growing up plant-based, there is the whole estrogen in soy thing that comes up again, another dairy industry sort of invention. So can we tell folks that when somebody says your kid needs can't be doing soy milk because it's going to affect their puberty? Jana and Rhiannon are both asking, what's the best way to respond to this?
Amy, maybe I'll have you start and then I'll chime in.
For sure. Yeah, so it's not estrogen that's present in soy milk, it's phytoestrogens, which are actually functional foods, which are health beneficial to everyone who consumes it. So I wish they were called different things, but they're not.
And you know what else has phytoestrogens? Beer. That doesn't stop men from drinking it.
There you go. I love that. Yeah, and there's other foods as well that contain phytoestrogens. This is like the most common question I get from my nutrition classes from men in particular, is like, oh, I don't eat soy because I don't want to grow boobs. And that's not, there's no evidence that indicates that that's the case. And soy is more than safe to consume. You don't have to worry about hormones. It's a non-thing. It's a huge myth. It did start originally with 2 studies that were done in mice a long time ago that have since been debunked. So
yeah, and
don't
there's
worry about
been
it.
hundreds and hundreds of studies since then that absolutely do not have replicable results, right? So yeah, that's all you have to say, folks. It's a dairy industry. Dairy industry is a very powerful industry, and it got this going, not just the dairy industry, but the meat industry to basically take the soy out of the mix. So unfortunately, we all have to have that really a succinct, concise answer when people say, oh, the estrogen in dairy, or sorry, the estrogen in soy. Okay, so we lost Dr. Patel, I think had to go get the patient, but I just want to, before I get a last word from Naza and Amy, I just want to share one of the reasons we wanted to have Naza and Amy on and talk about kids is because we are launching, I'm part of a group that's launching something called Plant-Based Toronto. It's going to be an ad campaign that's running on the Toronto subway for the months of June and July. Oh, there's Rikin back. And it's going to be amazing. We are going to have leaders and people from the plant-based community in Toronto featured to show how joyful and vibrant and healthy it is to be able to have to be on a plant-based diet. Hi, Rikin. So glad you're back. Kirsten, if you can make Rikin
Sorry,
there we go.
my computer just all of a sudden died.
Yes, we got you now on the phone. Thanks for coming back. Kirsten, can you share? One of our poster people is actually 3 vegan kids that I would just want to share. You're getting a preview of the design, and you're one of the few. So here we go. We've got the Wild Bunch. And I don't know if you can see it very well, but that's how the posters are going to look on the subway. That's one of them that's going to be out there. And yes, I have a personal link to all of these. I'm kind of an aunt to all of them. Aviella has been vegan for 4 years since she was born. Maple, 2 years since she was born. Luke, 3 years since he's been born. And so we just really wanted to be able to put it out there that this, put it out there that these are healthy, active, wonderful kids. And they're, look at them. They're perfect. And also 2 of our poster folks in the campaign are going to be Naza and Amy. We don't fully have their posters to show you yet, but watch for them. You're going to see this. And also for any of those in the Toronto area, we're having a launch of this campaign on June the 6th. It's what is it? 7th, sorry. June the 7th. Thank you. It's Saturday, June the 7th. It's going to be the biggest vegan party of the year, folks. At least 250 of us. And not just taking a look at the ads, but also dancing the night away. So I hope you'll join us. There's a ticket registration in there. So the last thing I want to do here, folks, is I just want to have a parting word. It might be a resource that some of you already shared resources, but it might be a word of wisdom of how to sort of work with your kids to when there's pushback. It might be a last little bit of science sort of advice, nutrition advice that it's really important for folks to take away. And I think, we're going to start with you, Naza. What is a little piece that you'd like to leave folks with?
As far as for parents, I would just say an open mind and patience, and to listen to your child. They know within what's for them and what's not. And as parents, we like to no, you must do this, you must have this, you must eat this. But I think just being patient, listening to your children, and learning from your child. That openness will really help to create a wonderful movement for the family. Because we as adults, we can always learn. Our children are here to teach us. We think it's the other way around. So that's probably it. And just taste the love of whatever you cook. Just taste it and create it. So
I love that you brought up involving your kids in the cooking, in the preparing. Yeah. I know Amy does that too. I think it's so important because, you don't want to you want to set them up for life to be happy, healthy vegans, right?
Absolutely. And take them shopping. Let them read the back of the labels, even if they can't. Just hold it and that's how my son started, and now they can, get it all. But it's just involving them. It makes them feel like they're a big part of the family and the decision making, and it just empowers them.
Love it. Thank you, Naza.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Rikin, how about you? What's a parting word or 2 you want to give us?
So I just wanted to share with all the families out there that modeling as parents is so vital in terms of our kids' food choices. There's research to show that how did they try to get more kids eating fruits and vegetables? Did they, cut it up into a certain way? They tried all different things, but actually the parents' food choices and what they modeled was actually the biggest impact on the kids and their food choices. So I can't emphasize that enough with families. And obviously in my setting, I'm always encouraging families that, you've come here for your child, but see this as an opportunity for the whole family. And so I think that's really the power that we have with our children, and not only modeling our food choices, but also, in this context, modeling how we respond to others. I think there's a great opportunity for parents to, if we can stay calm, if we can be confident, if we can, model that in our responses to others, our children will also see that and do the same. So again, the theme here is modeling, and then, as best we can to prepare our children. One of the tools that I think often sometimes parents forget about is that even just creating role play situations for parents, for kids, of different situations that may come up, that helps the kids with their confidence in real life. So those are just a few things.
I love that. Thank you so much, Rikin, because we've had a couple of people in the chat just talking about how hard it's been for their kids and, getting teased and all that sort of thing. So I think, the more knowledge you have, the more sort of standard answers you have and in your back pocket that you can pull out as a parent or as a kid, just makes life easier. It just shuts it down, right? Or opens it up for healthy conversations, for constructive conversations. So yeah. Amy, what do you have last words for us?
Oh, you both stole my answers, but that's okay. I will triple down
She's
on
having
it
to go
and
last.
just say, yeah, that's okay. Just be the example, right? Be the good example for your kids, for your coworkers, and do it well. Make sure that it's evidence-based, make sure that it's delicious, make sure that it's, brought to people without judgment, without, with kindness. It's just be that bright shining light that people go to and say, well, this is working out for them. Okay. And they're all healthy and happy and well educated. So yeah, just be the example.
Love it.
Sharing food is such a powerful way to open people's minds. So just share what you have. I know when I was even in residency, it was always it was a topic of conversation. What is Patel eating today, right?
Yeah.
And I would share everything. And all of my fellow residents, they say, hey, Patel cooked for us, we could do this, right? And so again, just sharing is such a simple way to build relationship and to educate.
Yeah, love that. And just, just one more thing. For those parents that do get pushback from, say, doctors, dietitians, things like that, are there any resources, anything that you would recommend they point folks to? And I think we need, Rikin, you can speak to this, but from what I understand, doctors generally, GPs, get very little nutritional training. Am I right?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, we get probably up, less than 30 hours in our 4 years of medical training. And so it is very little. I had to pursue it all on my own after my medical training and just my own lifestyle. Been learning more, and it's an evolution. I always say that it's, our patterns change based on what we're learning and what we're trying. But Plant-Based Canada has on Plant-Based Canada website, they have a list of providers, dietitians, physicians, all different types of providers, even social workers, people who are, advocating and supporting a plant-based diet. So that's a great resource to be able to go to, that Plant-Based Canada has, if you're looking for a provider to reach out to.
And we do have a link for Plant-Based Canada. They have kids resources in particular. And then if you go elsewhere on the website, you can find the practitioners. So Nevis, if you don't mind dropping that into the comment, that would be great. I know your cat is trying to take over your keyboard. Amy, and so, yeah, what else can you say about the pushback thing? Anything else?
Yeah, I think it's just the same sort of sentiment where you meet people with curiosity as opposed to, well, why do you feel that way? Or, what is your reasoning behind that? And just asking questions and then providing evidence and resources. I think the strongest one is just that the experts, it's unanimous that a planned plant-based diet is not only adequate, it's also beneficial.
And that's according to Dietitians of Canada, Dietitians of America. And what are some of the other big ones you want to name? If
American Academy of Pediatrics and the Canadian Pediatric Society.
There we go. We got it. Okay. Amazing. Let's take folks off of spotlight now. Yeah, Naza.
Kimberly, I just wanted to say one thing to our launch party for the TTC campaign.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity to also come and taste some of the delicious food that will be available for people to purchase at the party. We will be there with some delicious offerings amongst many other awesome vegan businesses that you can indulge and try. And I do agree, it is only through taste. That's food you can explain it all you want. It doesn't make sense. It needs to smell good and it needs to taste good. And from experience, all these years, that's how you kind of help transform people.
Mm-hmm.
At least the curiosity becomes like, oh, this tastes really good. Really?
Mm-hmm.
This is what vegan is? So, and the fact that we have so many different cultures and different flavors in Toronto, especially, to be able to showcase the variety of the food makes it even that much easier. So everyone from everywhere can enjoy delicious food made with love. Plants.
Absolutely. Such a good point. We can know all the science of how good it is for us folks, but somehow that doesn't work unless it's tasty. So a really great point. So if you're speakers, if you're not back on Gallery View, get back on Gallery View so you can see the folks here. Folks, can we please give a big AJA thank you to Amy, to Rikin, and to Naza. Thank you so much for your beautiful work, everybody. You are bright, shining examples, founts of knowledge, and you have the best hearts. So thank you so much. I hope everybody's gained from this. We had 60 folks at one point, but I know we've gone over, and thank you to those of you who have stayed till the I'm not going to say bitter end, the sweet end. We will see you in 2 weeks for our next AJA Lunchtime Live. It's going to be all about the new parliament in Canada. So hope you'll join us for that. Have a really good one, everybody. We'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.